Hey, this is Brandon from ComicCon.com. Today we have with us Diego Valenzuela, the head of story worlds at Masked Republic. And Masked Republic is doing some really cool things in the Lucha Libre and comics space. Coming out on July 17th is a book called Luchaverse Catalyst. It's written by Marco Lopez and Ivan Plaza. The artists on that one are Ben Harvey, Brian Magnaye, I hope I'm saying that right. If I'm not, please tell me. Diego Simone, and letters by Micah Myers. There's two stories in there. One features Rey Mysterio, this guy here, and the other one is Tinieblas. Diego, how you doing today?
I'm doing very well. Thank you so much for for having me.
Of course, of course. It's funny because we talk about this a lot. Well, I talk about this a lot. People listen politely a lot because, yeah. But about superheroes and professional wrestling and like the connections. Professional wrestlers are pretty much like real life superheroes. They have super strength. They're larger than life, colorful costumes. They have superpowers, secret identities. You've got the Technicos and the Rudos in Mexico, and that's the superheroes and the supervillains. But like, let's talk about that connection a little bit. Like, what makes you want to make comics with these stories?
I love the like you just mentioned something that's really important to me, and I think the nature behind these comics is that there is a very obvious, they have a lot in common, right? I've always thought that what you just said, the luchadores and wrestlers are the closest thing we have to superheroes in the real world. There is one very important aspect that I think uh, really puts them on that space, which is the mystique around the luchador, especially the ones wearing masks, right? Because
Hmm.
one of the coolest things to me, that yeah, like superheroes, one of the biggest thing is wear the costume and keep your identity a secret, and it's part of the whole narrative, right? Um, and I do like the idea that mm, with luchadores, it's the same thing, and it is not part of like a fantasy that they're selling you, right? It is an actual real thing that they do. That we have many wrestlers that have been doing their stuff for 30, 40 years.
Hmm.
Solar, Super Astro, a lot of them, and nobody knows their face. And that is crazy to me. This is something genuine. They go out and they are wearing their masks, and they go meet fans. Of course, they're wearing their masks. And sometimes they go out for lunch and they are wearing their masks. And nobody knows what they look like behind. And maybe
Hmm.
you've seen them walking by the street and you don't know it's
And
them.
you have no idea,
Yeah,
right?
that is something that is just really cool to me, and I love telling this story. When I was a kid, when I was about 7, 8 years old, I was walking down a street in Mexico City, and if you guys have ever been there, you will know that the like lucha libre is an important component of the culture here, and you see it everywhere. You will see flyers, you will see masks, you will see everything. And I was walking, and with I think it was my mom, and there was we stopped at this newsstand, and there was this one magazine featuring Blue Demon on the
Hmm.
cover. And at that point, I didn't know what lucha libre was. I was not familiar with that at all. But the
Hmm.
first thing I thought was superhero. I thought this was a superhero character, maybe from, I don't know, a movie or a game or something that was coming out soon. And it was later explained to me that no, this is not a superhero. This is like an athlete, and if you want
Hmm.
to see him do his thing, you can. I can take you to the arena, and you will see him right there. And that kind of blew my mind, not a little, but a lot, because I was like, so this is a thing that actually exists. Like
Right.
people do this. I want to do that, So I do think that there is a very obvious connection. There is a lot in common between luchadores and wrestlers, and superheroes, and there is also a very obvious, very strong connection between superheroes and comic books.
Hmm.
Um, of course, comic books are the birth of many, many, many superheroes, and so kind of making the leap between luchadores and comic books is, it's not even a leap; it's just a tiny little step, right?
Right. Right. It's just two sides of the same coin almost. Well, and I don't think people realize, and this is the point I was about to make, is how fiercely masked luchadores protect their identities. Where there are guys who are professional wrestlers who then show up on soap operas and TV shows and stuff, and they show up in mask.
Yeah, of course.
And when they go out in public, they go out in mask. And there have been guys that have gone so far as like when they go out in public when their wives, their wives are in masks, because if you knew who their wife was, you could figure out, you could reverse engineer it and figure out who they are. But then when somebody does get unmasked, how big of a deal it is, how they have to come up with a completely different character, or they have to be unmasked from that point forward. Just how big that mask is and what it means. Like Rey Mysterio, this basic design has been his design for a long time. Like the crown used to be here and now it's a cross, but little things like that. But the eagles on the side have stayed the same. And basically every iteration of the Rey Mysterio mask has had some version of those eagles on the side, even when he's doing superhero cosplay. Like he's done Phantom, he's done he's done so many, Silver Surfer, he's done Batman, he's done Joker. And I think it's really cool also when he does that, because that's a huge nod to some of the connections between superheroes and luchadores. And I think Rey Mysterio is one of the guys that really gets it. So that's very cool that he's making a comic. The story that Rey is doing, I liked it a lot, and I think it's really cool because Rey Mysterio is this guy who's, people think he's tiny and he's not. He's 5'6", which is pretty average. He's only about 6 inches shorter than me. They think he's this little guy, but he's not. But he goes in and he's doing this thing, and it's almost like a Rambo, Indiana Jones cross up. You want to talk about a little bit of the inspiration behind that?
Well, that story was written by Ivan and Marco Lopez, but Ivan Plaza and Marco Lopez, just to make that clear. And I do love what you just said about the like the genre it goes after, right? Because something that's very particular about what we're doing with the Luchaverse is that every luchador we feature as let's say a main character for their respective stories, they have although they all share the same universe and it's very clear, each of them has their own thing going on where it's a different genre, right? So for Rey Mysterio, yeah, Ivan and Marco found this really appropriate action adventure kind of thing with of course some supernatural elements to him. I don't want to give too much away, but I do like the idea of he being this kind of badass commander of this team of paramilitary soldiers, and they just do like I love one of the covers. I think it was Ben Harvey's, where they're leaping down from this airplane. It's just a beautiful cover and a perfect representation of where we're going with this story with Rey Mysterio, right? And the idea of having him lead this team and where it takes them, which you've read it, you know where that goes, and it's such a cool little twist. To me, it kind of really fits with the Rey Mysterio character. Like it goes really well with what it does, and that is something that I've always applauded a lot with the with these first 5 stories before I got into writing the Luchaverse. That they really knew how to pick the genre that each luchador will kind of represent, right? Like Tinieblas Jr. story right after Rey Mysterio's is so different. It's a horror story with much more supernatural presence. It's a far more sinister in tone. As much as there are some awesome fights, it's less action oriented, and that is something that I really appreciated that Ivan and Diego did.
Right. So there's a shift there, because both stories have action and both stories have monsters and things like that. But, it's much more prevalent, the action in Rey Mysterio's and the horror element. And speaking on horror, we did the superhero thing for Rey Mysterio. Look at the horror roots in professional wrestling. You got guys in the US like Undertaker, Papa Shango, Bray Wyatt, Kane, Gangrel and the Brood, Abyss. And then in Lucha, you've got, Damien 666, La Parca, Halloween. You've got a mini dressed as Chucky going around stabbing the other minis. Psycho Circus is Psycho Clown, Monster Clown, Murder Clown. It's a big deal. So the thing is that the Lucha is fascinating to me, where it's just these guys are so much the character and people are so terrified of them and stuff like that. But then again, you see them walk out of the building after they've washed all the makeup off and stuff like that, and they're walking around. It's just a normal guy. You would never know. But just how much does the horror in Lucha like contribute to the general atmosphere of a Lucha event?
I would say a big deal, especially when it comes to Tinieblas and the stories in which he's involved. Like you said, there is a very important connection between horror and the comic books and Lucha, right? Because when you have something as clear cut in terms of like the good guys and the bad guys as we have in I mean, not only Lucha, because it's also a thing in wrestling in WWE and such.
Of course, yes.
I do like the idea of some of these heels, some of these rudos kind of really taking it to a supernatural extreme, right? They're not just mean guys, they're not just tough guys, they are like actual monsters. And
Mhm.
that is so awesome to me, because they go from being the Joker to being I don't know, like a killer croc, like an actual real
Mhm.
monster. And I
Yeah.
love that you mentioned Bray Wyatt, because it was one of my favorite uh, entrances, one of my favorite.
Mhm.
I guess the right word here would be like a gimmick. I
Mhm.
just loved watching him do his thing, and I started watching. I hate doing this, but like American wrestling, like just making that dichotomy between lucha libre and wrestling, because of the Undertaker. Like when I first saw
Mhm.
him, he wasn't doing the undead character, but he was doing like the biker thing.
American
But
Badass.
yeah, the American Badass. Thank you. But then when when he was doing the undead character, I just loved it so much. And it's again so obvious, because some of these characters, like they are supposed to be like the mean guys, they take it to this point where it's evil, not
Mhm.
only mean but evil. And
Mhm.
Tinieblas, what I like about him is that his whole gimmick is he's obviously not the bad guy, but he's a monster hunter. Like he's taking the mantle of a monster hunter. and
Mhm.
uh, and I won't give too much away for his story either, but I do like the idea that nobody faces monsters like he does, and
Mhm.
we kind of really wrote the stories that the way he fights, so that he
Mhm.
is used to fighting all kinds of creatures, like from fighting I don't know, like some kind of cat person to some
Mhm.
10-foot tall JD, right? Uh, and that is something that's really really awesome, and a lot of fun to see
You
on the
did not
page.
just bring up Jorge Gonzales and his terrible sewn-on patches of fur standing there not being able to move around the ring. Come on, man.
I love that stuff.
That's like the worst Undertaker foe you could have brought up. I mean, yeah, Mankind. You had like,
And the worst thing is oh yeah, and Mankind, Kane, all that stuff.
Mhm.
I saw that match one time when I was with some friends, and I hadn't seen it yet, and they
Mhm.
kept telling it to me, like it's just the most crazy thing you have ever seen in your life. And I was like, oh, I mean, I'm sure it's on YouTube. And when we watched it, I was like, holy crap, that is insane.
It's
Like one
SummerSlam
of the most,
1994.
yeah, that was the one.
Yeah. And one of the things that actually made that not work, so they went to theatrical kind of horror stuff with Bray Wyatt and the House of Fireflies. What was it he did? He did a couple of matches that were theatrical. Um, I think he did one with John Cena. He did a couple of others, but one of the things was is if they had done that match in an arena and cut the lights and just had a very limited lighting, that match would have played much better. But it was in an open arena in the middle of the middle of the day, and so you can see all of the flaws in the way that Jorge Gonzalez moved around inside the suit, and you could see all the flaws with, the little hiccups of communication and stuff like that. Whereas if it was a little bit dark in there, I think that match would have played a lot better. Oh,
Yeah,
there went Ray. Ray
love
just
that mask,
fell
by the
off the
way.
bottle.
I saw it
Oh, thanks.
when your camera opened. That it's just so cool.
Yeah. So I picked this up in Mexico. God, 25, 30 years ago. And like you were saying, Lucha Libre is such a big deal down there. I was in Tijuana, and just every store had just walls and walls of Lucha Libre masks. They had, Blue Demon, and they had Mil Mascaras, and they had, Rey Mysterio, and they had just all the different masks, the clowns and all that stuff. And it was just so interesting to me. And at that time, I didn't know a lot about Lucha Libre. I was like 18. Um, but I grabbed this mask, and it was like $5 or whatever. So any kid can go and grab the mask too for $5, or three for 10 or whatever it is, and then run around and pretend to be the characters and play the characters. And I know that happens a lot.
It does, yeah.
Um, yeah, where you're like jumping off of rocks and cinder blocks and things, to like, we did it in our backyards too, but we were doing like the Ultimate Warrior and Hulk Hogan and
Yeah.
stuff back in. Yeah.
That is like I have about like the masks I have back there. They are like they have been gifts, and they are like professional made masks. But I do
Oh
have
yeah.
like 30 or 50 masks somewhere else, which are they're lower quality bootleg masks. That it's
Mhm.
just part of the culture here. Like if you go to
Well, yeah,
the arena, you will find the
the good stuff.
thousands and thousands of yeah, they have like actual expensive, really well made masks, and they have like
Mhm.
the cheaper ones that go for whatever, and that you just put them on to watch the matches, and then you
Mhm.
take them off, and that's it. Like everybody walks out with a mask when you go to the
Sure.
to the arena, and that is so cool to me. So I have my
But like, and
collection somewhere.
if you look at this, the cross isn't quite lined up. It's
Yeah.
off center just a little bit, and the stitching is a little because it's one of the cheapo masks. But you can absolutely, and I've looked because I've tried to get like custom masks made to wear to conventions and stuff because I thought it would be really cool to get one of these custom makers to make like a Venom mask and then wear that as a cosplay because that's a super easy cosplay and it's also super easy to get out of at the end of the day. You just pull the mask off. But you can spend $1,000 on a well-made mask, or you can spend $5 on one that's kind of hokey, and there's all kinds of levels in between.
Yeah. Actually, that one up there, like right above my head, it's a Bane mask from Batman because one of my favorite characters, and yeah, that is actually professionally made by the by the AAA mask maker because some friends of mine gave it to me, and you can tell like when it's well made, like how
Mhm.
breathable the like the texture is. You can wear it for hours and hours and be
Mhm.
okay with it and sweat in
Well,
it
and
and everything. That is generally that is what tells you if it's a professional mask or a semi-professional mask, and just the cheaper stuff that you buy at the airport. The airport also has 1,000
mhm.
masks there
Yeah.
for people to
Yeah, you
kind
have
of
to be able
remember
to
masks.
breathe to run
Yeah,
around and do all the flips and jumps
yeah,
and stuff.
that
If you can't
is
breathe, you're done.
yeah.
So I had a question that came up a little while ago, and I wrote a note here, and I forgot to ask you. We've been talking about Ray, and we've been talking about Tinieblas. Conan has a cameo. How much influence do the wrestlers have in their individual stories that are being made?
I don't think they have like a direct line to it. Like I said, these stories were written a bit before I came into Mass Republic as a head of story worlds and as a writer. But these all of these characters, all of these luchadores, they work closely with Mass Republic on many different areas because Mass Republic
Mhm.
also beyond the entertainment stuff, beyond comics and the animated series and everything. Um, they are also a talent agency. They also negotiate contracts with many
Mm.
of this licensing and with many of these luchadores. So they all know the brand of each of them very well. And these are all comics that they've read, that they checked out. They sell themselves when they make their public appearances. So
Mm.
while they, at least in my experience, they haven't had like the direct influence, like they don't overview scripts or anything like that. In my experience,
Mhm.
um, they do. These comics are written with kind of like a trust between the luchadores and Mass Republic. Like they know we're managing their brand and their character as well as possible, and I know they've been very happy with the results.
Well, that's very cool to hear. Like,
Yeah.
and you said some key words there that it's a brand. It's a, because I know that, the gimmick right now that's going on right now, or the storyline that's going on right now with Rey Mysterio and his son Dominic and stuff like that. Like, that Rey and Dominic get along, and that Rey is super happy for Dominic's success, and that Judgment Day is the best thing that happened for Dominic and stuff like that. So, but all their public appearances and the things that they're doing, where people can see them again, they're protecting the business, or protecting their identities and things like that. So, trusting, that is a big deal, to be able to trust you with the story, to take it in a direction that works with what they're trying to do professionally and what their long-term and short-term goals are with the current storylines, and then with things that are coming down the line. They don't want anything to happen now that's going to endanger their livelihood, or their perception of their character, or what their character would do, or anything like that. Because everything that is in the book, I read the book, and I've been watching Rey Mysterio for a long time, and there's nothing that was said or done in that book that goes against anything I've ever seen of Rey.
Yeah,
I'm,
that is something interesting that I noticed. Like before I started writing for Mass Republic, I was the head writer for the animated series that Rey Mysterio came out with
hmm.
on Cartoon Network and Max this year, actually. And
Oh.
it's really cool to me that we really closely developed what the character would be like, what the story would be like for this animated series, right? Which yeah, we did work closely with Rey Mysterio for that one. Um, and then I read the Rey Mysterio book, which we're talking about right now, and it was cool to see another writer's kind of, maybe the word is interpretation of the
Hmm.
Rey Mysterio character in a fictionalized version of the Rey Mysterio character that
Hmm.
was so different to the one we made for Rey Mysterio versus La Oscuridad. But they are both so purely Rey Mysterio. Like
Hmm.
they are both different, but they both seem completely in line with who Rey Mysterio is, and I think that speaks volumes about the brand of and about the voice that Rey Mysterio has, and the kind of storytelling and the kind of character he inspires. writers
Mhm.
to do, that they ended up having so much in common without us ever talking with each other. And
Mhm.
I do think that is something really cool about it.
Well, and that's also a good hook down the line when you're talking to new talent or whatever, or different guys that you want to write, and they see the care that you've taken with Tini Ablas and with Rey Mysterio and Conan and the other guys. So you said there are five, and we talked about three. I've got Rey Mysterio, I've got Tini Ablas, and I've got Conan. Who are the other two?
The other two are actually two pairs. And a number on Catalyst number 2, we have a story featuring the Lucha Brothers, Rey Fenix and
Mhm.
Penta Cero Miedo,
Oh.
which is really cool. Those are some of my favorites because, like those, the Lucha Brothers stories, kind of a martial arts fantasy story that
Mhm.
is really really awesome because it really leans into kind of a kung fu thing that I loved. And the one that's really really maybe I hate playing favorite, but it might be my favorite one of these first five stories, which is Solar and Superastro, Los Cadetes del Espacio, because they are like actual literal superheroes, right? They actually play like super powered super beings, and
Mhm.
it's kind of a sci-fi fantasy adventure, like outer space exploring thing. Like
Oh,
it's like
okay.
leaping from I don't know, like jumping from Batman to Thanos, right? Like that kind of cosmic thing. And their story is a lot of fun. And something that I really like about reading these stories with these characters and eventually writing them is having them play along each other, like having them
Mhm.
interact with one another, how they get along. Ivan and Marco did an amazing job with the kind of establishing these relationships, which is
Mhm.
something that I got to play with really fun, really well, and really enjoy. Hopefully, really well, and I really enjoyed it. For the final comic in this 3-issue arc, which is the what we call the interludium, in which uh, these stories kind of come together. Like it's the climax of the catalyst, and I
Okay.
got to kind of write these characters interacting one another and really develop this web of relationships and which characters get along with one another and which characters just
Mhm.
don't, or just don't see eye to eye and stuff. And seeing and writing that is probably one of the most fun things that I got to do with the Luchaverse thus far.
Well, that's cool. And one of the points that I'll make is that the two stories are written by completely different teams, um, and they fit together. They are in this bigger universe, but it's really easy to see how Rey Mysterio and Tinieblas can interact with each other later because they have different parts of the same story, but they have the same kind of goal, the same kind of mission, in the same kind of place with the same kinds of uh, obstacles. I want to say
Yeah,
without giving too much. Yeah.
yeah, and I like to kind of compare it to like early Marvel movies where you have like maybe the Winter Soldier, which feels like a political thriller, and you have Thor, which is just a sci-fi
Mhm.
fantasy story, and they are decidedly part of the same universe. And
Correct.
but in the end, despite all the differences that they have in their own stories, they both have to fight Thanos eventually, right?
Mhm.
So that is kind of the thing we're doing here, in which there is something for everyone, right? Like if you maybe you're not that much into horror but you like martial arts, so okay, maybe
Mhm.
Tinieblas Junior isn't so much for you, but you are gonna love the Lucha Brothers story. And also the cool thing is that with this Luchaverse, it's definitely worth reading all of them because they do come to a climax with a sixth book. I mean, with a sixth story. um, but you can kind of read them out of order if you want. Like if you're more excited
So
about
there's
reading, yeah,
there's 5 individuals and then one that kinda wraps everything up, so there's
that's
6
right.
total.
Yeah,
Okay.
that's true. Six total in 3 different issues, starting with Catalyst number 1 that comes out on July 17th.
I've read it. I loved it. It really does have stuff for the action adventure. It really does have stuff for the horror fans. If you're a wrestling fan, if you just like comics, if you like superheroes, I really believe that this is one of those overarching, just like genre encompassing stories that you can sit there and basically give it to anybody who reads comics, who likes wrestling, who likes horror, who likes action adventure. You said kung fu, dude. I love spaghetti westerns and kung fu's and dude, I'm in. I'm in. I want to know. I want to see the next ones. I'm super excited for it. The one we're talking about right now is Luchaverse Catalyst number 1. Features Rey Mysterio Jr. Oh, he's not Junior anymore, huh? He's just Rey Mysterio, huh?
Yeah, he's just Rey Mysterio.
Okay, so Rey
Tinieblas Junior,
Mysterio.
yeah. We do
Tinieblas
call it,
Jr.
yeah.
Nice. It comes out on July 17th. Written by Marco Lopez and Ivan Plaza. The artists on that are Ben Harvey, Brian Magnaye. I hope I'm getting that right. Diego Simone, Micah Myers, Lucha Libre Cryptids, Las Vegas. Dude, Tinieblas' one opens up on Fremont Street. And I was just there a couple weeks ago, man. I love Fremont Street. So it's cool to see too, like real world locations that kind of brings everything kind of into that realm of reality too. So it's just slightly off of reality is some of the most fun stories.
Yeah, Tinieblas does that. Like he's kind of a globetrotting monster hunter. So he does appear in a bunch of different places, and I love the representation of the many different spots that show up in the comics.
Nice. Just don't come to Bakersfield. There's nothing here for him.
I'll take notes.
Nice. All right. So my name is Brendan Allen. That's Diego Valenzuela. The book comes out on July 17th. It's available for pre-order now. Go down to your local shop. Tell them that you want the book so they order enough and you don't get stuck out. Thank you very much for your time, Diego. We'll see you next time.
Thank you so much, man.